As the most authentic outdoor food eating streamer first in the whole network, Ed Stafford can always come up with something new no matter where he goes. This time in Taiwan, China, he even gets to eat wilderness-style meat-filled zongzi. Taking a bite, it's truly mouth-watering, nutritious and healthy. The challenge location for this episode is located at Shengxian Valley in Taiwan, China, and this time's challenge opponent is Ed Stafford's old acquaintance, Ness. Not only is she an adventurer and survival expert, but she is also Ed Stafford's nominal godmother. Despite this, Ed Stafford doesn't plan to go easy on her. Ness also firmly believes that she will be the first female contestant to win. This competition is approximately 70 kilometers in total. Along the way, they need to pass through rocky valleys and dense primeval forests. The finish line is located at a suspension bridge above a riverbed. As usual, whoever reaches first wins. The two are only allowed to carry a hunting knife. The competition referee is Teddy, the Taiwan branch's strongman. As the referee gives the order, the two jump into the water and officially start the competition. Since it's the rainy season locally, the river is in flood, which also adds quite a lot of difficulties to them. After getting ashore, Ness decides to go directly downstream along the river, while Ed Stafford, who is not good at water, plans to enter the jungle. Little does he know that what awaits him ahead is another even more turbulent river. Unexpectedly, at this time, the sky also starts pouring with rain. Instantly, the ground becomes extremely muddy and incredibly slippery. This makes him start to wonder if he chose the wrong route. In contrast, it wasn't raining on Ness's side. However, the rocky riverbed made her journey difficult, and she also had to be on the lookout for falling rocks from the mountains that could take her out instantly. At the same time, Ed Stafford also crossed over a hill and reached another river. Unlike Ness, he needed to go upstream along the riverbank. Yet, after just a few steps, he was blocked by a waterfall. He initially planned to climb up directly from the side, but the rocky cliff was slippery. One slight misstep and he'd be in serious trouble. After a moment of thought, he decided to make a ladder. At this time, the bamboo growing all over the mountains came in extremely handy. Based on the Pythagorean theorem that triangles are stable, he used tree vines paired with bamboo to quickly make a triangular bamboo ladder. After finishing, he stepped on the ladder and easily climbed up onto the rocks. This made Ed Stafford so happy that tears almost welled up. On the other side, Ness was currently in the lead. During her trek, she didn't forget to gather some supplies. The bark of this paper mulberry tree has extremely high toughness, making it a perfect choice to use as a rope. Of course, these small rivers were also rich in protein. As soon as she finished speaking, she caught an underage little crab. Without further ado, she directly threw it into her mouth, shell and all. It was crunchy. Unexpectedly, the taste of this little thing was quite good. Although it was small, it was fortunate that it had far more protein than beef. As the sky gradually grew darker and the rain kept getting heavier, Ness immediately decided to leave the river and find a place to set up camp. Not long after entering the jungle, she found a rock cave. Such a prime spot. Would be a pity not to spend the night there. So she quickly gathered palm leaves and laid them on the ground as a mattress. Next, she had to quickly get a fire going to warm herself up. She quickly made a torch using vines. All she needed to do was grasp both ends and rub them rapidly to create sparks. However, it seemed simple, but in reality, it wasn't easy at all. After just a few rubs, she was so tired that she was almost out of breath. Finally, after the vines were rubbed raw, there were finally sparks. Then she put the sparks into a fire dragon, a fire-starting device, and soon blew out a small flame. At the same time, Ed Stafford was also busy building a shelter. He used bamboo to construct a roof frame. To avoid getting his beautiful hair wet from the rain at night, he covered the top with leaves as tiles in layers. With a roof, of course, a bed was also necessary. After finishing, he went to scrape some bamboo shavings to use as a stove. Then he held bamboo pieces and rubbed them rapidly to create small sparks. Finally, he completed all of this before nightfall. In this way, the two of them lay in their respective shelters and spent the first night. In the blink of an eye, the next day arrived. By the fire, Ed Stafford had slept extremely comfortably last night. Just as he was preparing to continue on his way, he found a cricket crawling on his hand that didn't know where to go. This was protein delivered right to his doorstep. Not eating it would be a waste. This thing was a definite high-protein snack, just right to solve his breakfast problem for the day. After some chewing, he found that the taste was surprisingly good. Not satisfied after eating, he caught dozens more nearby and stuffed them into his pocket. Of course, eating only meat and no vegetables wasn't good. This tree is called the guanlong tree, a plant unique to Taiwan. The white part of its heartwood is an edible growth. It would have higher nutritional value if cooked before eating, so he quickly made a steamer out of bamboo. Then he mixed the crickets and the heartwood together, wrapped them up with banana leaves, and soon had several wilderness-style meat-filled zongzi. A dozen or so minutes later, the delicious food was ready. Opening it up, it was steaming hot, and really looked the part. Taking a bite, he had a big smile on his face. This was what you called a proper meat and vegetable combination. In its original flavor, with every bite full of calories, Ed Stafford, who had been hungry, couldn't stop praising it, claiming that this was the best food he had ever made in his many years of survival. After eating and drinking his fill, he stepped on the gas and continued on his way. At the same time, after trekking all morning, Ness encountered a large-scale and severe landslide ahead, and rocks were occasionally rolling down from the mountains. Not wanting to take the risk, she could only bypass it through the jungle on the side. However, this journey wasn't as easy as imagined. Either there were thorns all over the ground or she encountered dead-end paths. She could only keep moving forward with determination. At this time, Ed Stafford was also blocked by a waterfall. He moved closer to take a look, but couldn't find any chance to climb up at all. Helpless, he could only turn back the way he came, and find a way around. Just as he was complaining incessantly, a nearby cave happened to catch his attention. The light inside proved there must be an exit, so without another word, he started crawling in. Perhaps with a bit of luck, he could reach the top of the previous waterfall. After passing through the cave, a pool of water appeared before him. Continuing forward, the space became increasingly narrow. By the end, only his bald head was above the water. Fortunately, Ed Stafford, relying on his solid skills, successfully got out of the dangerous situation. Feeling as if a heavy burden had been lifted, he also saw the cave exit. When he went over to look, outside, a heavy rain had started again, and before he knew it, it was night once more. Rather than go out and get soaked by the rain, it was better to just endure the night inside the cave. As for Ness, she built a shelter in the jungle, using tree bark. After finishing, she slept straight through until the next morning. Unexpectedly, there was a surprise when she woke up. It turned out that last night, a beauty rat snake had slithered into her shelter. However, since this creature is a protected animal in Taiwan, she could only helplessly let it go. On the other side, Ed Stafford also managed to hold on until dawn. The high-intensity exercise from the previous day left him starving early in the morning, so he gathered bamboo, intending to make a spear to see if he could catch a fish. Then, taking a deep breath, he dove into the water. After a great deal of effort, and numerous failed attempts along the way, he finally succeeded in catching a small pufferfish half an hour later. Although he was shivering intensely from the cold, the outcome was well worth it. Without time to start a fire or heat oil, he directly started eating the flesh raw like sashimi. Apart from being slightly unpalatable, it had no other drawbacks. But fortunately, it could replenish a tiny bit of calories for his body. At this time, Ness was trying every possible way to get back to the river. Unfortunately, there were cliffs and steep walls everywhere, which made her somewhat distraught. With no other option, she had to waste a lot of time detouring. Meanwhile, Ed Stafford, who was lagging behind, used this opportunity to slowly overtake her. In the end, Ness spent almost the entire day just getting back to the water's edge. Unexpectedly, shortly after returning to the water and not having gone far, a waterfall appeared prominently before her, blocking the way. Fortunately, there were many sturdy vines growing nearby, so she decisively chose to use the vines to descend. In the end, and entirely unsurprisingly, she reached the bottom of the cliff. After getting ashore, she excitedly let out the same hearty laugh as Ed Stafford. As another day was about to end, Ed Stafford started gathering materials to build a shelter. Unexpectedly, he used too much force, and ended up flying out completely. Then he gathered some weeds and spread them on the ground as a mattress. After finishing, he just casually covered it with tree bark, and the job was done. Compared to Ed Stafford's rather makeshift coffin house, the shelter Ness was building could be said to be quite exquisite. After finishing, she even wove a basket from vines. She planned to use this basket later to catch fish in the river. Ed Stafford, lying inside his shelter at this time, was very worried about Ness. He just hoped her situation wasn't too miserable. After all, the relationship between the two was already like family. Meanwhile, Ness was by the river, planning to use the woven basket to catch fish. She tied the basket to a lever with a torch, using the phototaxis of the creatures to attract the fish. When the fish came, she would lift the basket. There was always some catch. After an unknown period of time, she actually managed to catch a few. These few fish were enough for her to have a full meal. At the same time, she didn't forget to taunt Ed Stafford a bit. She hoped he was cold, hungry, and had no success at all. Then she hurried back to camp to start a fire and heat oil. The next moment, Ness was eating her first meal in 3 days. Although there were no seasonings at all, in the face of hunger, these were simply not problems. In the blink of an eye, the fourth day arrived. To better plan his onward route, Ed Stafford climbed to the top of a mountain early in the morning to survey the terrain. At the same time, Ness also set off early. During the journey, she lost her footing and slid down the hillside. To make matters worse, she fell into a patch of stinging nettles. She believed everyone was quite familiar with the potency of these things. Ness felt her skin burning fiercely, as if being pricked by needles, and so, the two of them spent another day scrambling through the jungle. Soon, evening approached. Just as Ed Stafford was busy looking for a campsite, he noticed wisps of smoke rising above the jungle. Following the smoke to investigate, he indeed found signs of human activity. It was very clear. Apart from himself and Ness, there wouldn't be anyone else here. So Ed Stafford immediately showed himself and went over to greet Ness. Ness quickly realized that this guy had come to mooch off her fire. However, given their many years of friendship, she didn't refuse. Later in their conversation, they both expressed that they were like family. Winning or losing wasn't important in the face of familial affection. Unexpectedly, early the next morning before dawn, while Ed Stafford was still fast asleep, Ness quietly left the shelter. By the time Ed Stafford woke up after daybreak and opened his eyes, he found that Ness was already gone from the campsite. Although Ness was currently in the lead, her physical fitness, compared to Ed Stafford's, was still considerably lacking. Moreover, Ed Stafford was feeling a surge of competitive spirit, and his steps were full of vigor. He finally caught up with Ness just before reaching the finish line, and successfully overtook her. At this point, only a few hundred meters remained to the suspension bridge. The final challenge before them was to climb to the top of the mountain. Neither dared to slack off, as the gap between them was very small. In the end, Ed Stafford, relying on his astonishing physical fitness, was the first to reach the finish line. Then, within a few minutes, Ness also arrived close behind. From this point on, it's likely Ed Stafford will never believe a relative's sweet talk again. This competition successfully concluded with Ed Stafford's victory.